Hello and welcome to this edition of the Evening Review. My name is Toiwan Jabela, your host for tonight. Let's look at the front page of today's Namibian Sun, but don't go away because tonight's show is the one that you cannot miss. In tonight's segment, the viewers have been on my case saying I must bring this man in the studio, Dr. Panduleni Itula. I've been trying since late last year to get him here. He had his own views about appearing on this show, but today he made it to the show. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry. I'm not a person of interviews
Yes.
because what I do is not about me.
Yeah, I
and it's
understand.
about the people, and that's why I don't really anticipate entertaining that.
We respect that.
Thank you.
Now, you have been, you know, there's a famous say in Swapo that it is very cold outside Swapo. And you've been outside Swapo for the past 4 weeks now. You were expelled on the 20th of March. How cold do you feel right now?
Let's get this misconception out.
Yeah.
I've never been expelled from Swapo of Namibia, of which I hold a membership and a membership card. Never. And Swapo of Namibia, it's sad when one considers the principles which made us join Swapo and the principles that the people are adhering now. Swapo of Namibia is founded on the principles of democracy, solidarity, freedom, justice, and progress. Now, those are the binding principles that led a lot of Namibians march into battle, that led a lot of Namibians, including myself, endure torture in prisons, that led a lot of Namibians run up and down this country campaigning.
Yes.
Those are the principles, the founding principles of the party. It is sad when you see those principles upon which we made these convictions becomes thrown away without anybody taking care at all. Those principles were betrayed. Democracy was slaughtered on the altar, on the silver altar, on the 6th of October, when Comrade Hake Geingob came in with their slate of politics. Now, let's make it very clear. Swapo has got justice and democracy. Justice implies that here the other side. There was no moment at all where a disciplinary hearing had been conducted, and any so-called expulsion can only be valid if validly and within the laws of Namibia executed as such. There hasn't been any quasi-judicial procedure followed by the leadership, the current leadership of Swapo. The current leadership of Swapo has betrayed all those principles I alluded to earlier. Those are the founding pillars of this organization. And in order for Swapo to expel anybody from the party, at the moment they've got no judicial or any governance principles to do that. They need to do it properly. And if they have done it properly, they would have done it properly in the best interest of the membership and not a few leaders. Now, there was a 14-day given for an appeal. What principally is the case in law and within the binding principles of Swapo, there was a nullity and invalidity. I will not try to validate an invalidity by an appeal. As far as the whole nation is concerned, the true members of the Swapo party who adhere to those principles are concerned, there was no expulsion. I merely read the letter heading, your expulsion, and the signatory. This Politburo of Swapo party in terms of Article 17, sub-Article 10 of the real constitution, not the one that they adopted in Otape, etc. That one which says that only the Swapo party Congress can amend and adopt a constitution. That principle of that constitution states that the Politburo shall have the right to expel a member of Swapo or an affiliate organization for serious violation of the Swapo party constitution. I violated no party constitution, and also that can only take place when there has been a proper, valid, lawful governance principle followed, quasi-judiciary, disciplinary hearing. And there was no invitation to disciplinary hearing. Even if there was an invitation and I didn't attend, they could still have sat in absentee and found me guilty on whatever charges, then send that verdict to the Politburo, and the Politburo, being the final executing authority, then would have said, Dr. Itula, have you got, Comrade Itula, have you got any mitigating circumstances before we pass judgment? We are not in a banana republic, or Swapo cannot be drawn into these decisions of individuals. This party has led to many sacrifices, and we need to honor those heroes by adhering to the very principles of the party: solidarity, justice, and democracy, and freedom.
Indeed, Doctor. There was a letter, if I remember correctly, there was a letter by the party written to you. I can't remember the dates prior to the decision to dismiss you or to expel you, saying essentially that you must provide any reasons why you shouldn't.
Yes.
Did you reply to that letter?
The letter was sent to me by WhatsApp. I replied in kind through WhatsApp. That letter was acknowledged by Comrade Kaundinge in the office and confirmed that he would have sent that letter to Comrade Sophia Shaningwa. They did not report back in kind to that letter. And this is critical. It is critical that if they had reported back and constituted an appeal committee, properly constituted, and had a prosecutor to prosecute me on the alleged conduct, and then I would have had a right of reply. None of that quasi-judicial principles have been followed. And we must understand too, in Article 11, the Swapo party created the disciplinary committee, and its purpose is to institute and to put in operation a code of conduct. Now, I need to be charged on a code of conduct that I violated or a constitution that I violated. I overheard them listing a lot of charges, etc. So they were the judge and the jury. That is not democracy. That is not justice.
That's not justice.
And if Swapo honestly wants to be true to the Namibian people, it should answer the question. And again, if they cannot even adhere to their own principles, this is the leadership. I'm not talking about the members of Swapo. Many of us members of Swapo and everybody adhere to those principles. It's the principles that we went in the battle for. If they want to lead Swapo to prosperity, they must adhere to those principles. If they can't adhere to those principles and they call the constitution a piece of paper, what do you expect them to do in government? Now,
Doc, one of the terms that were being used in relation to your participation in that election of last year, and particularly the outcome of that election, is that you broke a camel's back. That is the term, the phrase being used. And the camel being referred to here is Swapo, which you are saying now you are a good member of the party, a member in good standing, I suppose, too. But you broke your party's backbone, if you like. And so surely the party has every reason to... So the legalities aside, there are grounds to expel you, isn't it?
What are the grounds? First of all, broke the last straw, the last straw that broke the camel's back. Let's get it very, very clearly. There is a misconception that the decision to stand is born out of the divisions brought about by Comrade Hake on the 6th of October when he introduced his slate politics, which resulted in the so-called Harambee team and Team Swapo. Let me assure the public and everybody, it had nothing whatsoever to do whatsoever with Team Swapo or Team Harambee. I was asked by Comrade Helmut Angula, whom I last saw last February during the Atoivo March, during the 2017, whether I would be willing to become his campaign manager, which I did superbly, because if you give me a task to fulfill, I will do it. And as a consequence of that, he managed to visit 12 out of the 14 regions. And when the results of the Congress elections was even made public, I wasn't there. I was at home. And I have never, throughout the independence period, participated in the Swapo Party Congress, never been a delegate. I've never served in any party organ after independence. And there's a misconception that I belong to some form of organ, Politburo, Central Committee, or an executive committee of even a section, the basic unit of the party. I didn't belong to that at all. The last time that I was elected in 1978 with Comrade Marco Hausiku was when I was elected as the Swapo Youth League Secretary for the Windu branch. So, my participation in the elections was nothing to do with Team Swapo and Team Harambee. And none of the members of Team Swapo ever contributed or encouraged me or had discussions with me about my independence. If anything, a lot of them probably had a adverse, no, it shouldn't be told. Okay, I remember mentioning it to one of them, and he said, no way, you can't do that. I can't do that. So, there is a reason why I stood, and that reason is very clear. And it's not linked to any legal issues at all. It's something much more fundamental to that, and I'll make the public know about that at a later stage. The time is not ripe now to do so. But we need also to understand that there is no prohibitive clauses in the Swapo Party Constitution, in the rules providing for the participation of members in elections, and we must understand that the leadership of the Swapo Party is elected by an elitist grouping. The Swapo Party Congress is a delegation of the leaderships of the regions and the various districts. The grassroots participatory democracy does not take place. Doesn't take place in Namibia's political parties, all of them. Not a single one of them was elected on grassroots democracy at all. My participation has got nothing to do with that. Clause 53 of the Swapo Party Rules and Procedures that provides for the automaticity of the party president to assent to the candidacy of the national presidency is contrary to Rule 12 of the Swapo Party Rules, which says that no position in Swapo shall be held by promotion, automaticity, or anything. All positions in Swapo shall be elective. In Article 4C1A2 says that every member of Swapo shall have the right to elect and be elected. These two are conjunctive linked, to elect and to belong, to be elected. And you'll be elected in forums you belong. Now, there is no justification to link that non-automaticity and then the automaticity of ascendance and link it to Article 17 of the Namibian Constitution. Article 17 of the Namibian Constitution says that all citizens shall have the right to participate in peaceful political activities intended to influence the composition and policies of government. It also says that all citizens shall have the right to form and join political parties and subject to fulfillment of qualifications that may be prescribed by law, as is required in democratic societies, to participate in the conduct of public affairs, whether directly, and there is the disjunctive word, or through freely chosen representative. Your membership of a political party does not deny you your direct participation to influence the composition of government by standing once you qualify, such as I did. And that's why also Article 5 of the Namibian Constitution says that rights inherent in Chapter 3, including the right of participation in political activities, shall be respected and upheld by the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, and all government institutions, and natural and legal persons. Swapo is a legal person. Swapo party subordinate to the Namibian Constitution. And no political party, unless they have got a specific clause in the association's document, which says that, and I'll tell you this at a later stage too, prohibitive, in a manner that is not taking away citizens' rights in Article 17 of the Namibian Constitution. It's easy to construct, but Swapo has not done so. Neither has any. The PDM has got a little clause there. I know this is not about PDM, which says that if you stand in, then you automatically come out. But that is not correctly phrased and can be challenged as well. So my participation in elections just last year violated none of the constitution of Swapo, none of the rules, neither the code of conduct. The only code of conduct that I could have violated in code 16.5 is that of supporting another political party, and I have not done so.
You have not done so.
Yes.
So when
and on the other hand, again, is this it?
Yeah.
I know that they are wrong, and there is no need for me to waste taxpayers' money to take them to court. No. You don't. Yeah. You don't kick anybody who's down already. Yeah.
So how much of the blame, if you like, are you willing to take as a Swapo member in your party losing 14 seats in the National Assembly, and those seats inherently went to parties like PDM, if you calculate properly, and also losing its 2/3 majority? So, how much do you think you had to do with that?
Let me take it absolutely clearly. The right to participate in political parties, political activities, has got nothing to do with membership of a party. The Namibian people have got an inherent right to vote which political party they will. It's about convictions. It's not about allegiance to a political party. If we carry on voting for allegiance to a political party, then that is going to be dangerous. Let's take it very, very clearly, step by step. The leadership of the Swapo party has turned its back against the people of Namibia. I stood up to try and rescue the people's rights, to say your right to vote is a sacred right. It cost a lot of blood and sacrifices. I will save it by standing as an independent so that you can still exercise that. Had I formed a political party at that time and voted for me, I would probably have had 36 seats in the parliament at the moment if the currency was 14,000 votes. So I have not been responsible for the performance of the Swapo party. The leadership of the Swapo party must take the blame. And I would have asked them to resign. One, they are originating from a doubtful, dubious 2017 Congress that we now learn it appears that there was tainted money that was involved in that one. They have got no legitimacy to be where they are. They also betrayed the will of the people of Namibia. They promised honey. And yet, we've got 995,000 people in informal settlements. We've got students on the streets. We've got the youth unable to advance meritoriously into governance so that we can leave this nation to a youth that is able to ensure the survival of the people of Namibia and our country. They sold this land out, and they have betrayed the country by looting the natural resources. You cannot sit in a cabinet, a head of the cabinet, and yet your own ministers publicly state one there, round it up to 200, aimed for a certain process of the Swapo party when we believe in democracy. That is the highest treason and a betrayal of all those people who sacrificed. So Dr. Itula is not responsible for Swapo's performance. No. Swapo's performance should be squarely be put on the commander-in-chief, Comrade Hake Kinkop. He betrayed by introducing his slate politics on the 6th of October in the Politburo 2017. He betrayed the principles of justice, democracy, and freedom. The Namibian people are not to be pushed around left and right. They made their choice. Why would you want to blame Dr. Itula? The blames that we tend to dish out is the denial of the objective reality. Yeah. The people of Namibia has become of age. They are matured. I was pleased to contribute to teaching them their rights in the Constitution as I went around this country. And is that knowledge, you empower the electorate, they will not be pushed around anymore.
But just how much of your candidacy, Dr. Itula, was actually influenced by the events of 2017? Because earlier you seemed to have dismissed that it had nothing to do with it, but it keeps coming up in your responses that that was the root of all evil, if you like. How much of your decision to stand as a candidate last year was influenced by the events of 2017?
None of the events of 2017 influenced my candidacy. If you may recall, in 2014, I started traveling this country. When I came back on December 2013, I was away for a long time. And my first task was to know this country. And I traveled every single corner, from Sneyfontein to 12Fontein, from Etanga all the way to Aroap, you know, from Erindiro Donjo in the eastern ASEP and GAM. I traveled it all to Quest and everywhere else. And I asked one question to everybody: what did independent mean to you? And I had multitudes of answers. It meant a lot of things to other people. That was an incidental training. Yes. That I've just gone around. And I walked in informal settlements, and I was asking people, my neighborhood, what is it that is wrong in this country? And then 2016, I was given the task to start amending the Swapo party constitution and the rules, etc. And then I came to understand how Swapo operates, and I was disappointed. That is not the party that we stood for. Yeah. What we had yesterday is shocking and tearful, what we've got now. The betrayal of the people of Namibia's rights to grassroots participatory democracy, in addition to something else that I'll come to later on, had contributed to that. But definitely not the 2017, because one, I wasn't a candidate in 2017. I had no direct loss. I was also not a delegate in 2017 at that Congress. Neither have I been a delegate elsewhere. I wasn't concerned as to who was going to become the president at that. What later on evolved after the fish rod is the knowledge now, which was well after I've already been a candidate in the national elections, what seems to have happened. And any leader that is aware of that, if I was Comrade Hake Kenkop, aware of that, even aware that ministers who were sitting in my cabinet were busy with devious proceeds of organized crime or whatever it may be, up to the judiciary to decide, I would have instantly resigned. I've seen people in the world resigning, Margaret Thatcher and the likes of Michael Heseltine, just on a disagreement of where the tender should go, etc. This is much more fundamental to the principles of democracy and justice, the principles upon which so many soldiers of Swapo have marched into battle. The many people tortured is so fundamental to have protected. And in addition to that, we've got a president that, in terms of Article 30 of the Namibian Constitution, is there to protect the rights of the Namibian people, including my right to participate in democratic activities. So it's got nothing to do with that. It's unfortunate that the president we have in Swapo, if he's at all legitimately elected in 2017, not contrary to the prohibitions in the Code of Conduct that no money should participate in the democratic process of electing leaders in Swapo. If there was money, then they have violated the Code of Conduct, and not Dr. Itula.
Not Dr. Itula. Last year, as we marched into that election, if we listened to a lot of your interviews, a lot of your pronouncements at the time, you were so sure of being in State House now as we, by this time. You are seated with me in the studio today. What happened there?
And not in a studio in State House.
Exactly, yes.
The whole nation knows who won these elections. And I can tell you that Comrade President Hake Kenkop knows who won these elections. And I can tell you Mr. Muyoro and the ECN knows who won these elections. Yes, I was assured, the people were sure there was a time for change. But just remember that all wars do not have one battle. That was but one of the battles. And we have had a protracted war of independence with many skirmishes, with many battles. I'm not at all disappointed. Neither are the people disappointed. What I want to tell the people of Namibia is this, that yes, the vision is there. There is a bigger light at the end of the tunnel. Don't be distracted what happens alongside the road. It's an essential contributory factor to the eventual victory, so that we can actually harmonize the rights of our people to avoid us being betrayed once again, that the blood of our people being betrayed by a group of elitist people that are there just to feed their bellies. What I was looking at is a situation where the Namibian people truly start enjoying the fruits of our independence, where our resources are shared by our people, that our land is shared by our people, that the likelihood of advancing into government and into entrepreneurship is being available, where we can create opportunities to that. But at the moment, that is not going to take place. It has not taken place. We've got a massive amount of people who are unemployed. At the moment, we had a knife at the throat of our own economy, and we are facing difficult situations now. And I am advising the nation, tighten your belt. What is going to come may well be difficult for us to cope with.
That's very scary, Doctor. So on the 5th of February this year, the Supreme Court delivered its judgment in your application against the use of the EVMs in last year's elections. You were interviewed outside the court right after the judgment was passed, and you told us, Namibians, to rally behind President Hage Geingob, support our president, because he was then declared as sort of the, not sort of, he was actually declared that he's then the president of the country. That was the 5th. Around the 10th, 11th of the same month, which was just 5-6 days later, you made a U-turn. You said, no, you are not going to leave this battle hanging. What happened there? Who talked you out of your initial position?
One, I never make U-turns. Neither do I go in reverse. You missed two important words in that statement. Under the circumstances was one word I used. And I used another one, albeit without paper trail. Those were conditional. Those were the critical conditional words in that statement. Under the circumstances, let me take this opportunity to congratulate Comrade Hage Geingob for the victory, albeit without paper trail. What does that mean?
Meaning you accept
paper trail was a condition of instituting electronic voting systems in Namibia. That was dissected by the minister concerned. The circumstances under which I congratulated him is where the judiciary decided, notwithstanding the absence of the mother, the child still exists. Those were the circumstances. The circumstances of unconstitutionality that our highest court allowed an unconstitutional process to be validated with its outcome. That is a dichotomy that you cannot marry together. And albeit without paper trail, let's dissect Section 97 of the Electoral Act very carefully. That provision was by Parliament constituted to be implemented in one, not dissected, and also subject to Section 2. The paper trail is the outcome. And it says that where there is a discrepancy between the electronic, we need to understand this. The design of the EVM is such that when you press the button to vote, four things happen. The light comes on, the sound beeps, a pen should make a cross opposite your preferred candidate, and then the next thing, that little thing comes out, the paper, that ballot. And then before it drops, you check that you've actually verified who you voted for, you the voter, and then it drops in. And then the part of the Section 97 Part 4 says that where there is a discrepancy in what is printed out in the EVM and the papers that drop there, the paper count becomes the outcome. There were no paper counts in all the polling booths. There were therefore no outcomes in all the polling booths. And it says in Section 3, and every vote cast is verified through a paper count. There was no verification of every vote that was counted. What we've got is a precedent as an outcome of an acceptance of an election not based on the principles of law. The law was violated. And Comrade Hage Geingob is the custodian of our Constitution. In Article 1, number 3, we've got separation of powers. In Article 30, it says that he must protect that. And if I was in his shoes, I wouldn't have accepted that. So my circumstantial congratulation and my asking the Namibian people to respect the office of president is based on the principle respect for dignity in our Article 8 of the Namibian Constitution. The dignity of everyone must be preserved. And it's unacceptable, albeit the manner in which the president ascended to that position, to name all sorts of names against him or to say things that destroys his dignity. We must respect that. It doesn't matter what he's done. It doesn't matter his faults and everything else. Yeah. You still respect the office that he occupies. And that is only human to do so.
Yeah. I have two more questions, three more questions, Doctor.
Okay.
One is still related to what we are discussing now. Yeah. What is the status of your application for that judgment to be reviewed? Have you heard from the courts yet?
The Supreme Court of Namibia has got a provision to say that where you find that part or a part of their judgment is inaccurate or erroneous, you've got a right to return back and to ask them to review it again. And to do so, you will need to give a substantial application. We did that. And we did that on the basis of Article 81. And therefore, I was aware of Article 81. My statement outside the court there was also critical. Why? Because during that time, there were soldiers summoned at NBC under the pretext that Dr. Itula is going to mount a whatever in NBC. And I was absolutely dumbfounded. And that's why the reason when I heard it that I said, I'll walk my supporters right back to Katutura where I live to avoid anything taking place. And the extent as to which all the soldiers were at State House and the old State House and the NBC, I thought to myself, what are the perceived ideas in some people's minds about Dr. Itula, notwithstanding his adherence to the basic principle of Namibia, democracy, rule of law, and justice. So, when we applied, we put in our founding papers. The other side gave us their answering affidavits. We put in the replying affidavits. Which was left behind is a trial day. And as soon as we came there, the doors of justice shut in our face. As that happened, Corona started coming in. I have to balance what was important. We already have got 2/3 of this victory of this whole thing. The EVM has gone. That's brilliant victory for the Namibian people. Absolutely superb. Now then, what was there to be taken? It was to go in order to annul the elections again and then go back in. It wouldn't have been possible. Now, we would have risked the Namibian people with Corona at hand. What was much of a priority now to me is to fight Corona, to ensure that the lives of the Namibian people are protected. And the Namibian people clearly wanted a change, but then I had to make a decision on behalf of them at that time, those who were my supporters, that this is a battle that we won. Let's march on to the next battle. And the next battle definitely will be coming. So that is what happened. We pulled it back. We could have gone to the High Court to ask the High Court to compel the Supreme Court to open the door to justice. After all, fair trial is necessary. There was no fair trial at that point where the judgment relied on issues that were not raised. Okay, paragraph 100, 101, which says that although this was not brought by the respondent or the applicant, neither by the court itself, we believe that Dr. Itula should have approached the ECN earlier on before that date, but I wasn't born then. I wasn't a candidate then. I had no locus standi to be able to approach them to say where it is. But if it was put to the applicant to go for 15 minutes, to go and come back with an answer, then a lot would have come out, including the debates in Parliament. I believe the RDP had submitted something. I believe that Venani and his team has submitted something during the 2014 all along down there. So if the judges had put it to the parties, then a debate would have ensued. It is inappropriate for the judges to rely on a factor not argued, neither raised by any of the applicants or the court, as a means of saying, yeah, because you didn't actually brought it earlier, we'll penalize you for this, we'll give you 2/3.
Yeah.
It was, above all, give Itula everything, but not a rerun. On whatever creation there is. And I can tell you this then. Some of these judges will go on their deathbed and repent.
I'm wondering, Dr. Itula, what would have been if, by any chance, you had won that election and by any chance you were president of this country at the moment, how would you have handled this COVID-19 situation?
COVID-19 is not a new thing. We knew about COVID-19 in November. We knew about where it was, except the priorities of some people were misplaced. The whole sort of abstract subjective, how would you have done this, is a little bit tricky.
Yeah.
At the moment, the manner in which it was brought in has constituted a violation of a lot of things. The regulation itself is not properly drafted. And we must understand also that, I mean, if I say that, I probably need to quote one of them, which actually says that if there is a conflict between a provision in a law and this regulation, the provisions of these regulations prevail. These regulations are supreme to any provision in any law, including the Constitution. And then you look at, for example, the public gatherings prohibition. Public, not private. The whole thing is actually prohibiting things happening outside, in the public, not inside, in your privacy of your home.
Yeah.
And then it says that, for the purpose of this regulation, a public gathering is a gathering of more than 10 persons for a collective purpose. The purpose is not defined. The purpose is not defined. Collective. So the people coming together mourning publicly outside, not more than 10. But what about inside? And then I saw a conflicting response as well, with due respect to Lieutenant General Inspector General Ndeitunga, who was talking about, in relation to the Swapo Party birthday. I was not there, so I don't know what the truth and the objective truth is. And then what the Minister of Justice said. The Minister of Justice said that the 10 people gathering is related to critical services. It doesn't say that here. And then the Inspector General said that, oh, say a political party coming together, 10 people, as long as they are sitting there and they're self-monitoring, etc. Yeah. These are conflicting, because the Inspector General seems to suggest that the coming together should be of any nature. Yeah. Whereas the Justice Minister is saying it must be in relation to the critical things as well. And then it comes to the sale of alcohol. And in the sale of alcohol in sub-regulation 9, I think, 11, it says that prohibition relating to the sale of alcohol. It says a person may not sell alcohol during the period of lockdown. The word used there is may not. It's not saying must not. It's not peremptory. It's not authoritative. It's discretionary. May not. You may or may not sell it. What are the circumstances in which you may? And at the same time, I was really disheartened that police went to destroy the crates of alcohol of the people. That's private property. But this regulation is in conflict with the right to private property. And that is a breach of that constitution, although it says that where there is a conflict, these ones prevail. What the police could have done, and they should have done so, is tape all those cartons and say, don't open them. We'll come and check again. And on the day when the lockdown is out. So how would I have handled this? First of all, I would have brought together all my experts, all my ministers. And just remember, when it was first announced that we've got 2 cases, it was from the Ministry of Health. The same morning at 9 o'clock. And the same day, less than 2-3 hours later, there is a press conference in the presidency. Now, what does that show you? A lack of coordination of activities. I wouldn't have had that. I would have made sure that I get my Minister of Health, his advisor and the advisor to the presidency. I would have got my foreign minister in as well, my Minister of Finances, and I would have got my Prime Minister together. We would have had a meeting and say, we had this thing in November already, tickling on in China. And we allowed the Chinese in January to come back to this country. We even allowed guests to come to see an inauguration. There was the self-interest here and not the public interest that was playing here. The masses of the Namibian people were betrayed. They were not protected. The interest of the Namibian people was not priority here. The manner in which it was organized, we can carry on criticizing it. I don't want to play the blame thing. It is done inappropriately. If he hasn't done it, we would have blamed him at that time as well. The head of state may be congratulated for at least doing it to the best of his ability, whatever that is. You know, I'm not going to give the degree of ability. But then to go on and then to look at Article 1, which says that we have principles on democracy, rule of law, and justice. Link it up with the protection of the Constitution by the President and all the members in Schedule 2, 3, etc. And then you come down to the rule of law. Now, how can we have a president who made a law and who protects the Constitution, of which one of the pillars is rule of law that must be obeyed by all the citizens? How can it be then breached? You cannot, Swapo, they say you don't make your fence and then you break it yourself. Others will break it. But let's not play that. What I want the Namibian people to do is for you to protect yourself, your children and your family, your neighbors in your communities, and the nation at large. Let them break their own laws, because the enforcers of the law will be there. But let's remember, these people don't respect the laws. That's what's happened to people with dictatorial tendencies. With all due respect to the office of the presidency, yes, we learned a lesson. Everything happened for a reason, and we learned this lesson. In the future, the disaster forces will be better prepared, and we need to learn from it. But we shouldn't blame for the sake of it. We must blame in order to actually criticize constructively, so that eventually in the due course we'll come up with something better.
Indeed. The final question, Doctor, is a lot of people called you a circumstantial politician because of the manner in which you sprang onto the political scene. But you are also the politician that, the circumstantial politician, if you like, that broke his own party's camel back. Now, what is the future for you? Are you going to continue participating in the political activities, or do you think you've run your race?
It's nothing about Itula. It's the people of Namibia. The people of Namibia brought me where I am. Let's not forget them. This approach to the individual politician is wrong. It is the people that needs to be looked after. It's the people that decided, yes, you can. We need to understand also this, that if the tree that has been in existence for a long time doesn't want to bear the fruits anymore, we need to take a sprout from there. Go and plant it there. We don't need to leave mommy and daddy's house. We can be in the same yard and plant it out there, and it will grow. That is what the Namibian people will dictate. Whether we get them on a train to prosperity, which they themselves will design, which does not take into consideration their genetic makeups, because the genes of any individual does not make your political convictions. It's the environment that molds you. It's the environment that instigates people to go and come up in a situation where you are looking for a change, for an alternative to the status quo. The Namibian people have been crying out for a considerable period of time that enough is enough. And I'm going to call upon all the Namibian people. Soon, when you keep your eyes on the horizon, something will arise. And that's something that is arising. I'm asking you to reach out and grab it, because it will be the savior for our predicament. It will be something that belongs to you. We need to thank everybody for building the foundation, but you must be the bricklayers of the walls that will protect this country and its future generations. If you could only pick up a brick alongside that movement of change, the phenomenon for change was critical from a top downwards to clean up everything else from there to the bottom. There will be another phenomenon. This one will be one that the patriots of this nation will have to take up the bricks themselves and build it. I'm still prepared to be that. Circumstances have not changed yet. The circumstances that prevailed then are continuing. The suffering of the students, the suffering of the youth, the informal settlements, the lack of sanitation, toilets, water and electricity, the long distances that our people have to travel in order to get health, the lack of meds, the circumstances have not changed. The circumstances have just been enhanced. And until those circumstances has been removed, and on this occasion, not by the present administration, but the people going to follow this new phenomenon for change that is on the horizon. Keep your eyes open, it will be coming. And that will be, for the first time, that Namibians, irrespective of where you come from, will come together. Irrespective whether you belong to a political party, they will come into this unity for the prosperity of generations now and in the future.
Dr. Itula, thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much indeed.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
That was Dr. Itula, the former independent candidate in the 2019 election, speaking to us on a variety of topics that we've just heard him unpack. I hope you enjoy the interview. Good night.